Hi, everyone. Welcome to Freebird Spirit YouTube channel, and thank you for swinging by and hanging out with us for a little bit. We are in the same room.
We are in Syracuse. Yeah.
Syracuse, however you want to say that. That's where we're at, hanging out together and doing this is discussion 36, but who's counting?
You say that every week.
I know. Most of the time, I don't even know what number we're on. So there you have it. You have it. So I'm excited about today because we're going to be sharing the same space and doing a discussion together, seeing where Spirit Team takes us. And so here we are.
Yeah. She's probably going to hit me.
Yeah, because I'm violent like that.
Yeah. So I'm just saying.
Yeah. Anyway, so we do have we had such a wonderful response to the last discussion, and with the channeled message that came in with Yeshua, that was powerful. And but I do feel that from the response and y'all and the family's discussion with it, that it really was very moving for a lot of people. And I wanted to share one of the comments. I'm not going to share like who or whatever, but I'm going to read it and kind of move into the discussion today with what she said here.
I'll try anyway.
Yeah. And she says, "Wow, I couldn't hold back the tears tonight. I truly love your conversations. Would you consider discussing what we should do from a spiritual perspective when loving a family member is painful or difficult? Yeshua says, love each other. My pendulum also says the same. While I love and forgive, my heart and brain are ready to shut the door for the last time. I'd love any perspectives you may have." So that the reason that one moved me is because we all, every single one of us in this family, have people who are difficult, challenging, to move in that higher space that we talk about, or come from that higher perspective, or come from that heart space, that loving space. And we all experience that. And so I thought that was a good question for all of us, of how we can move from our heart space, from our higher selves, with those more difficult, challenging people in our lives, in our families and lives, and how to continue to love and be.
I was struck by what you just said. We all have someone. Say it again. We all have someone in our family.
We all have someone in our family that may be challenging.
Yeah.
To come from that heart space.
Yeah.
To love. Mm-hmm.
So I'm struck by the reality that persons is difficult for us as an individual, not generally.
Could be. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that it's not a. I think to come from a loving space means that you're not in judgment. You're just not comfortable, or you don't agree, right?
There could be some of that. There also, it could be from a space of where there's been an injustice done to you from that person,
That's
where
right.
there is a sexual assault or, abuse
or
of some sort.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So there's many layers to how we got here to begin with, but we've gone to the part. It sounds like this beautiful sister of ours has gone to the part of, I forgive them, I forgive this person, However, how do I move forward from here? And so in doing that, you freed yourself up, right? You've done your part. You've gone through your part. You've gone through the forgiveness. Now what's that next part? I mean, that's what I'm sensing here with this, what she has brought in.
I think the real issue is whether you love yourself, learning how to love yourself, and that not agreeing with someone or someone's not good for you, or what you brought up about someone who's abused you. You can still be in the spirit of love, being a loving human, and to yourself as well. And not engage with the other person if you can. I'm struck by that that email that she sent, that it could very well be someone who's abusive that she has to take care of, right? So that gets really hard.
That's tricky.
And we've heard a lot about caregivers and needing to take time out just for you and that sort of thing. And to really listen to yourself. Is this person really harming you? And you need to pull away. And it doesn't mean that you get into the energy of hate. It just means you get into the energy of loving yourself and being
Bingo.
a loving person.
Bingo. Yeah. Bingo. It doesn't mean you're if you make a choice to make a shift where you are separating yourself physically from this person, it doesn't mean you're not coming from that place of love. It could mean that you are making that choice out of love, right? So I think that's important to understand. Love doesn't, again, don't make it harder. How did we say that? We make things I'm making it more difficult for myself. We make things so difficult or complicated, and it's not that complicated. But we are so in the construct. We built this construct of, we need to do this right. We need to do this the right way, or we're in the wrong. That is making something complicated. It's not that complicated. Coming from your heart space is making decisions that may be to the old construct look like you're not doing it the right way, because, well, if you were really loving this person, you would forgive them, love them, and give them hugs. Well, that's not always what that looks like or how it plays out. So important to know, let's not complicate this. You're doing the right thing for you. That is coming from the loving space. As long as, coming from your heart space, that higher self, you've made the steps of forgiveness. You've done all that. So loving this person is difficult. How do you reconstruct this that's best for you, that's not going to be difficult or hard? Does that mean you distance yourself from this person? Does that mean when you're with this person, you don't engage in conversation, but you're still, or deep conversation or whatever? You don't put yourself as a doormat any longer, or you don't do this, or, you know what I mean? You've set it up for yourself because you're in awareness now. So it just, love doesn't, just know that love doesn't look like some of the constructs we've made love look like, right?
Yeah. Can you read what she said again about what a family member?
Okay. Would you consider discussing what we should do from a spiritual perspective when loving a family member is painful or difficult.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think the spiritual piece of that is about what does it mean to embrace the energy of love? Given, what we talked about weeks ago, that Mata said we don't even know what love is right now.
Mm-hmm.
That our souls are going to return to that loving energy that is a whole other vibration, that is a whole other frequency, is a whole other dimension, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think what we're doing as humans is practicing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when you sit still and you're in the energy of love,
Mm-hmm.
I do it on a regular basis right now, and one of the things that comes up is that the voice of ego comes in right away saying, yeah, but they have good reasons, or
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they're not, it's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not good enough, that stuff. I have to shut that down
Mm-hmm.
and go to the place where I say, what does it mean for me to love myself?
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean to me to be feeling the energy of love for me? That's not conceit. That's bringing in the energy of love, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have a person in your family, you might live with the person.
Mm-hmm.
It might be really awful.
Mm-hmm.
You might say to yourself, I'm really unhappy. And you know that what's down the road is some shift, right?
Mm-hmm.
It could be a child, it could be a partner, it could be anybody, it could be a mother, it could be anybody. It could be somebody who's got dementia that you're taking care of. It could be anybody. The first place to start is with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Am I okay? I'm okay. Is it okay for me to love myself?
Mm-hmm.
I was telling you an example earlier that didn't have to do with this, where a person I knew I shouldn't be with said to me, what's next for us? And I said, oh no, there's no us. But 20 years later, there was an us.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't listening to myself, and I wasn't loving myself. And that's not an insult to the other person. That's just the reality.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the right place for you? Is it the right feeling for you? Are you doing it out of making decisions out of love for yourself or out of hate? And that's, I think, the scary,
fear, or
what I think that's the scary thing about living with someone, or taking care of someone, or someone in your family who you don't like. How do you come to terms with the fact that you don't like them and you're in the spirit of love? So I think that's what she's asking. What do you do? I think probably chances are you love them just because they're a being, but you don't love what they do or love how they act. And that's a different thing. There's several people in my life who I don't agree with, family members. And, yeah, I was just reminded of the years that we went through where gay marriage wasn't acceptable, and the laws against LGBTQ people were awful. And my very own family would vote for people who were in favor of those laws being not okay. And that hurt a lot. Did I stop loving them? No. No, I just distanced myself because it wasn't good for me. And that's the loving part. I never stopped loving. I never embraced the energy of hate or fear. Just, I can't believe you think that,
And in their ignorance, they're voting for these people who wish you dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't.
They want the death penalty.
Yeah.
I think it was Pat Robertson at one point said that it's got, God has punishments for this. And I grew up in a family where my grandfather was a minister. My mother was a minister's daughter. And I finally said to her one day, God doesn't make mistakes. And she didn't know what to say to me. I was like, and of course, spiritually, And that's what that person brought up was, can we talk about the spiritual side of it?
Yes.
Which is to understand that God is an energy, not a human, not a being, but an energy.
Mm-hmm.
And that the energy is love,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
It's all the same. And so to understand that and to not separate yourself from that thing that we've been told is the real thing,
Mm-hmm.
the real God, like some big old man is sitting in a chair somewhere
Mm-hmm.
dictating. It's what you brought up the other day, that we want to blame God for things that go
Right.
wrong.
Yeah.
It's like you're blaming yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're blaming the energy of love.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, and we're in the middle of this Israeli-Palestinian thing that's really upsetting. And, what's happening to the people in Afghanistan and what's happening here and what's happening in Ukraine. You can't help but go there,
Mm-hmm.
but it's more important if you want to do your part
Mm-hmm.
to, as some people say, pray.
Mm-hmm.
Some other people say, bring in the energy, raise your frequency,
mm-hmm.
and it will raise the frequency of the planet.
Right.
You don't do it alone, but you can do your part.
Right. And I like that. When you walk into a room, your intention is to bring in the energy of love to that room, whatever room it is. It doesn't matter. You could be going to the movie theater. You want to precede yourself with the energy of love, just so that maybe it'll affect everyone in the room. Who knows? Maybe you're that strong, right? And but that's our intention. We want our energy fields to precede us. And so when you enter that room, you're entering with love, and that light and healing and all those things. But, I was thinking also about maybe some of the challenges here also are about our constructs around what love is. Right. And so maybe that's where we get stuck sometimes. It's just like, well, how can I love love this family member that it's painful and difficult? Well, let's take a look at where we may have constructs around loving, or love.
You had to open that up, didn't you? You had to open that up, didn't you?
Well, I didn't.
I'm in the middle of writing a revision about weddings and love and romantic love. We've got, and we talked earlier about the dimensions, that the third dimensional existence that we all have has been highly constructed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we've gotten the message that love primarily only exists between couples. Doesn't really exist. Or between a parent and a child. We get the message that that's the only place love is. Love is those things, those arrangements. But love is an energy force that's everywhere.
Everywhere. Mm-hmm.
So that's the hard part, to shed what you've learned and to have the understanding that you're really talking about an enormous universe kind of energy field that's beyond anything that we've been taught, and that to do the work to get into that space, to get into that field, and to do the evolution, really, to move from that dimension that's keeping you limited to the one that's much bigger, much broader.
Yes.
And so the notion of romantic love is a myth.
Right. So that's a great example of where our constructs have gone wrong, have done us wrong. And so we have an opportunity to take a look at our own constructs around our view of love, whether it's romantic love, whether it's a responsible love, whether it's a mother-child love or father-daughter love, or whatever the love is, wherever we've constructed it in these constructs, these relationships, where have our constructs gone wrong? Done us wrong.
And Tony brought up the thing about family, that the part of the constructs about love is that it only comes in certain forms. It either comes with a couple or a family. And so we have these models that we think are the only way in, the only way out. And if you aren't in that situation, you think there's something wrong with you. It's just a construct.
It is.
And as you would say, it's a box.
It's a box.
Yeah. And you get stuck in the box, and you might not.
Like, this is the only way a mother can be a good mother.
Right.
If she loves this way and she does this way, that's the only way that a mother is loving.
And by the way, there's no such thing as a functional family.
Well, that's
another topic.
I think we talked a little bit about that.
Yeah, we did. We talked about a T-shirt that says that functional family conference. There's only one person in the room. So, yeah,
exactly. So, but yeah, so we have an opportunity to really look at our own constructs here, of where we may have, I know that in my life, my idea of what love was, or that speaking of romantic love, was, it was supposed to look like this, and the family was supposed to look like this, and this happened, and this happened, and then this happened, and everything was going to be safe and good because you're in this construct of just what love is supposed to be. Yeah. Yeah. And none of that is true.
There's a movie, I can't remember the name of it, but it's all about Indian families. And she says on a regular basis, the mom of the bride says on a regular basis, I just want you to find the right man and get married, because that's the only way you're going to be happy.
Right.
And it must be said at least 10 times in this movie, where I'm sitting here going, really? Mm-hmm. Really? And I'm reminded of my own mother, who used to say, I just want you to meet a nice man and who sweep you off your feet and you'll live happily ever after. And she didn't. So I'm sort of going, what's wrong with this picture? So
how'd that work for you?
I mean, they cared about each other, but he didn't sweep her off her feet. But anyway, that's the.
So, do we have any specific directions or questions we could ask my team to come in and kind of direct us?
Or could you bring Yeshua back?
Well, we'll see who comes, but
okay. I mean, who better to talk about love?
I know. But do you have any specific questions, do you think, that we could be asking?
Well, I think it's the same question to ask him, which is what I'm reminded of South Africa. During the years of apartheid, there were a whole lot of people of color who were really, really badly hurt. A lot of death, a lot of abuse, just a lot of family members who died, that kind of thing. They then had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And the idea was that the very police people or military people who had harmed them would stand trial, but the family would come and they would have to admit what they had done. And the family would then say, I forgive you. So I think the piece that we're not holding on to yet is the forgiveness piece. What is forgiveness in relation to being a loving person, being in the energy of love, especially when you're encountering family members? I would encourage everyone to read up on what they did in South Africa. It was a real model for how to get through really, really difficult times with people who had done you great harm. And they did it in a very loving way.
So, yeah. And so that really, I like that, Chrys, because that really speaks to moving in the energy of love. You're a loving person. You also are releasing your own soul from hate.
Mm-hmm.
and anger
Mm-hmm.
with forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a choice of love towards yourself. And not necessarily, a lot of people say, well, how can you forgive that person? Well,
Mm-hmm.
it's not about that person. It's about you and whether or not you want to move forward and make this horrendous injustice that has
Mm-hmm.
happened to you create hate and anger and destroy your own
Mm-hmm.
self
Yeah.
with that, or you're going to move in that energy of love and bring that forgiveness in. And again, forgiveness isn't about that person, because you can see in your own lives when you've forgiven somebody, and you've also seen other people's stories and their forgiveness. It's a release for them. It releases them from a journey of hate, a journey of being that victim over and over and over again. And it creates destruction within your own body, mind, and spirit. And so that's where that forgiveness piece comes in.
We can't move forward.
No.
The people of Ukraine are going to have that issue someday, where they're going to have to move forward. And the question, I think that the issue that was so powerful in what they did was in South Africa was it allowed people to move into the present, to move forward with their lives, to reclaim that culture and the society.
Mm-hmm.
It also allowed the people who benefited from that, from being able to understand why that was important, mm-hmm. and for them to forgive themselves for benefiting from that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a really powerful tool. And to my knowledge, the only one that's been used in the world. But it's a really important piece.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So moving forward in the discussion, I kind of want to open it up again. I think I did pause it for a second because we wanted to track where we were going. But I'm hoping to
Desmond Tutu.
What?
Desmond Tutu.
Desmond Tutu.
Or Nelson Mandela.
Are you talking books here?
I'm talking people you could bring in.
Oh, okay.
They were South Africans who were the leaders, the spiritual leaders.
Okay. And do you have questions that you want to ask?
I'd love for them to talk about.
All right, let's do
the
this.
Truth and Reconciliation Committee.
All right.
Commission.
Okay. All right. So, setting this up, let's take a look at this. Okay. So I didn't hear the question you said. So.
Could they tell us how the Truth and Reconciliation Commission worked in the spirit of love?
Well, and I feel like you've already spoken to this, and that they it offers an energy of freedom, because you're either going to be chained up within your own soul with hate and anger and fear, and not free, and it will just create a demise within your own soul. And so this forgiveness is literally setting free of those chains that would bind you. And so our hopes there were to set these people, set everyone free, set these people free from their own chains of hate, and anger and fear within the act of forgiveness. Forgiveness is an act of freedom.
Who are you hearing from?
I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like Mandela.
If it's Mandela.
Mandela.
We're very blessed if it's Mandela.
I just heard that word. So
yeah, he was quite a person. He spent some 25 years in prison, and when he got out, he helped to restore the country.
Oh, and that would make sense to his chains and freedom, and yeah, okay,
yeah,
yeah. Oh, beautiful.
And Desmond Tutu was Reverend Desmond Tutu. He wrote a book with the Dalai Lama, so he knows very well. They were both instrumental in bringing the Truth and Reconciliation Commission together.
Okay. Love is a freedom path. It will always lead you to the path of freedom. It will not steer you wrong. The question is, what is love? And the answer is simple. Everybody's like, what's the answer? Okay. Free will. Recognizing free will, recognizing the free will in others. There's something here with this free will piece. It's very interesting, you guys. I kind of a little bit of a loss of connection there because I started asking him questions within my own mind about I'm like, what? So there's something here though with this free will. This free will piece. When you love is recognizing this free will and this free will in each of us. So there might be a better word here that I'm looking for, but it's something to do with when you take the free will of someone else and you squash it. That is the opposite of love, right? And so love is recognizing the free will in all and honoring the free will in everyone, honoring the freedom and free will of everyone. Once you start to squish and put people in bondage, that is the opposite of love, is what I'm hearing here.
So how did they see the recovery from people who had done them extreme harm and who had restricted their free will?
How did they see it?
How did they recover?
Well, we already talked about that a little bit. I'm assuming it with the forgiveness piece, because then if we choose to stay in the state of anger and hate and that whole victim piece. We continue to allow the other person to enslave us.
Mm-hmm.
So we can, if we don't enter into the forgiveness energy, then we continue to allow those or that person to hold the key to our locked chains. But once we step into the energy of forgiveness and release, we are released from the chains, and we take back the key. We are then step back into our own fullness and power, and in releasing them. Mm-hmm.
That's why the forgiveness is so important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, here we go. BB's neighbor. She's gonna have something to say.
All right, let me. So the question I have for Mr. Randall is I have such reverence for him because he went through such an amazing thing and brought his country, a whole country full of people, to a different place. That is the truth and reconciliation model one that we should employ in other locations, or is there something better that we can do?
This on a humanity level is one of the greatest challenges of our human experience. And literally on an individual level, if we could implement this in truth, on an individual level, this would help in humanity and as a whole, in general. But there, as far as institutions and injustices on people groups and people standing in the gap for and being able to institute this or implement it, it would tear open the veil, so to speak. It would the energy on the globe would immediately shift up.
Is it like a life review?
I feel like what you mean by life review would be a different scenario. This would be in the human experience on the planet, individuals stepping into the energy of forgiveness for utilizing that as a daily practice to set themselves free from their own chains. We place this outside of ourselves, but it literally is within us. This is another opportunity to kind of take a look at where we hand others the power over us. This is something that is within you and you have the power over. And if on an individual level, if we were able to implement this more and understand it, that alone would change the planet. Because there's such a cloud of I've been wronged,
and you should be punished.
and you should be punished. Yes. And so I've been wronged, you should be punished mentality. And if we were able to shift that, the planet.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. So the process is that not only do you have to hear every family member, for example, if you harmed a family, you have to hear every family member hear say what they've done, what you've done to them, and then you have to say everything you did and why.
I see.
And
what
you
you're
have
saying.
to have basically a dialogue. The dialogue took place, as I understand it, in a courtroom. The person who was the object was under arrest, so they were managed by the judicial system. But the family's right there saying, you did this, you did that, you did the other thing, this is what we felt, this is what you would, and you have to say what you did and why.
Yes.
And you have to come to some understanding between you.
I see I see the connection to the life review.
Yeah.
Life review on
the other side.
Yeah, the life review on here in this plane. That opportunity is times 1,000 in regards to consciousness and connecting into the consciousness.
It's
and becoming conscious and creating peace.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that the whole movement was to reinvent the country, to heal from the wounds.
Yeah.
So I go back to my original question, which is, where is love in all that? And you said free will, but I'm imagining that a family having left the courtroom and having resolved the whole thing, and how do they feel afterwards? How do they go on?
It would be different for each person, each individual, but you can imagine people were able to grieve and release the residual energy that may have been pushed inside or hidden. The release of grief was immense. The release of energy, the release of any of that, any of the chains that would have been locking them down would be gone. But it was at pure, deeper depths. They were able to walk out with their heads high, and in the energy of love and healing, and not be chained down. They literally were able to change their path. If they had remained on the path of fear and hate and revenge, you can imagine their stories would have ended much different. This changed the end of their story, but it also raised their consciousness, if you will. Yeah. They raised the consciousness of the world.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. There were several films made out of that experience.
Okay.
Anything else?
When you take the free will of someone else, that is the opposite of love.
Yeah.
I I want to get this right. I want to say this correctly about this free will piece. But what I'm sensing with this is that it has to do with kind of an overall, because I'm seeing the world. Okay, I'm seeing the world in the round. Okay, so like I'm up in space. I have a glimpse of the world, and there's this haze around the world, and this haze around the world is this I don't know, what would you call it? This air of this injustice of not allowing people their full free will, right? Or taking their free will. I don't know. There's something to that, and I'm trying to understand it, you guys.
So let's use an example, right? So you're getting dinner ready for your family, and suddenly in runs some parts of police.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing you know, they've scooped you up and they've taken you off to jail, or half the family off to jail. Their free will to be able to make a decision about sitting down to dinner with their family is removed.
Right.
So it's the violence of what was a safe space, what was a loving space, is damaged forever, right? So they've been pulled out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Then they've gone to prison, they've been tortured, even killed, and the family has to somehow sit down to dinner every night, right? So now the free will is really damaged.
Okay, yes, that yes, and he was just showing me while you were saying that, he was showing me glimpses, snapshots of human trafficking, of slavery, of people in chains, these types of things, this mentality, this haze, or not even some of these. Well, I feel like all of these are still going on at some place on our globe. But not only that, but we also continue to hold on. Like there's some of it that's we remain in chains because of the unforgiveness. And she's letting the neighbor know.
That's the cat bark.
Oh, cat going by.
So as soon as the cat gets through.
Sounds like she's done with the neighbors.
She's done with the cats. Yes, that's cat bark.
Okay, so I want to make this clear. What I feel like he was bringing in here with that, because I'm feeling like this haze is energy, right? So, what energy are we keeping ourselves bubbled in, where we don't have our full? We're not standing in our full freedom of expression of love, right? So that haze, and he's linking it into this where we don't, the inability to forgive, but then the constructs around what forgiveness means, right? So really bringing in the truth to that, and I feel like he did a really good job with that in regards to it's really dark, in regards to the example of, what was that called? Apartheid. And the example of walking through the ceremony, if you will, of forgiveness there. And then also offering us how we can do it in our personal stories, and how that would shift that bubble, so to speak, over the world, over the globe. And that free will piece that he was bringing in showing, and then the glimpses of these flashes of where that is being taken still and was, and how we can battle against that is starting within our own. He's bringing it back here to me personally, to us in our own personal lives, where we can step into the ceremony of forgiveness and what that means.
Especially when the perpetrator is willing to do the truth and reconciliation model. So someone who's badly abused you is suddenly wants to reinvent their lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're in agreement that, with witnesses, you can say everything you've done, and you can say you're sorry, and we can hear you, and we can tell you everything we've experienced and why it's important, and we can have some level of peacemaking,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is apartheid is really state-sponsored slavery of a form, and so the whites of South Africa, the Afrikaners, were able to benefit from the enslavement of all the blacks,
Mm-hmm.
and the blacks couldn't be of equal status in any way, shape, or form, and they would work for the whites in South Africa, but they didn't have any rights. So what you've got really is a system of, very much like what we did here, of state-sponsored enslavement, and that the thing that's interesting about South Africa is that the truth and reconciliation model, yeah. So it's a model that could be used in a whole variety of cultures, but hasn't been. I'm reminded of Gandhi when he helped the Indians get free of British domination, and that he used a nonviolent conflict resolution model to get through it. And Mandela's model, or the South African model, was not dissimilar of it. It was similar to that, but didn't have the forgiveness part. So while Martin Luther King and others have taken, used Gandhi's model, they haven't used the forgiveness model. The nonviolent model was really a spiritual model, and the idea was that we turn the other cheek, kind of thing, but that the violence that the other person commits is more visible to the masses than the violence than what you're going through, and so that becomes a real solid model of nonviolent resolution. The South African model was, I'm hesitating a little bit about using his name too much because it was really a lot of people involved. But the model in South Africa is one of forgiveness, one of recovery.
Right.
They wanted to get the society to recover from all that history and to basically install a level of equality.
Right. And that's how you
give free will back to people.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Give that back. And I feel like what he's offering for us is just, I feel very blessed and honored that to offer us at our level, just personal levels, and how important that is for the whole collective. And now I understand the model is that you have both parties, and the party that perpetrated the act needs to be in this model was a part of it. We all know that that's not always feasible. that's okay. Just honor what you can do within the ceremony of this forgiveness, and surrender, and hand back your chains, release those chains, on your own. We can also, I'm being shown, like the Ho'oponopono is very similar to this. So if you're familiar with the Ho'oponopono prayer, very similar.
I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. And thank you.
Yes. There you go.
There you go. Really simple.
So that's an example. And I'm also, there was one more thing, one more direction he was showing me. I lost it. Sorry, Mandela. Let's see if I can get it back. Oh, healing timelines. So if you're, you can go, so I'm being shown the most benevolent outcome prayer, Tom T. Moore prayer here. So those of you who are familiar with that, that's a good avenue as well to bring in this forgiveness piece, where you can go back in time and forward in time in regards to bringing this in. So healing that ancestry line, you can really do a lot of work here. And I'm excited about this because I want to see that haze that holds this globe in. I want it gone. And once that's gone, this is a whole nother planet.
It's a new Earth.
It's a new Earth.
Yeah.
So that's part of it.
Yeah.
I think it's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
So,
but you're right. You can do it yourself. Yeah. The Ho'oponopono is another model of the truth and reconciliation thing. The only difference is it doesn't have a system built in behind it. You know, isn't state sponsored something. Right. It's more personal. The person
he was bringing this in on a personal level. So
And the person that's asking the question about what's the spiritual way into this, when you don't, when someone is bothering you enough that you can't be in the spirit of love, the Ho'oponopono will release you from that. And you can do it many, many, many times about the same thing. And it will eventually lift you up and allow you to forgive it and allow you to raise yourself above the issue itself. So,
right.
Yeah. To a whole other frequency.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's basically a prayer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an intention. Well, Chrys, thank you again for.
Thanks, Debbie. Nice to see you again.
We're in the same room, guys.
Yeah.
With BB.
Back here is Ruth. See, we each have a room with Ruth in it. Yeah.
That's.
Oh, not Ruth. I'm sorry. Ruth's over here.
Ruth's over there.
Ruth's over there. That's Frida Kahlo.
Frida. Right.
And Ruth, she's in a wheelchair.
Yeah. Frida's and then we have Ruth over here. So, yep. Anyways, thanks, everyone. We love you. Thank you for hanging out with us. Love is the wisdom behind awakening. Forgiveness talk. I love it. So, please, until next time, take care of yourselves. Love and light to you, and we'll see you again.